So when should I retire? Well, that's a question that most of us start asking in our 50s. Hi everyone, I'm David Scranton, and thanks for clicking on today's video. You know, culturally we're programmed to think of age 65 as the normal retirement age, right? But many people retire much earlier and many much later. And it isn't strictly a financial decision. A variety of factors should be considered. And today we're going to be talking about those factors on today's show. When should I retire? I'll cover the pros and cons of retiring early, the pros and cons of retiring later, and 4 important steps to help you answer the question for yourself. And let's start with the pros and cons of retiring early, which many people dream of doing. A 2019 survey by American Advisors Group found that 52% of Americans plan to retire before age 65. Of course, not everyone will be able to make that plan a reality. Health troubles, job loss, family issues, all can disrupt one's plans. However, even if you have full control over when you retire, it's still worth examining the pros and cons of retiring early. So let's start with the pros. The 2 main ones are obvious. First is your health. The younger you are, the healthier you're likely to be. The second is time. You'll have more time to achieve your retirement goals. But now let's consider some of the cons, some of the negatives, right? Well, guess what? The 2 main ones are the same as the pros. First, once again, is your health. Retirement may bring on new stresses that you didn't anticipate. Or you may just end up regretting your decision as you struggle to find a new sense of purpose in life. Second, just like before, is time. Yes, you have more of it to achieve your goals, but you also have more of it to finance. So even at a normal retirement age with today's long longevity rates, most people need to plan for up to 30 years or more of reliable income. Retiring early, and you're going to stretch that timetable even further. But what if you do the opposite? What if you wait until, let's say, age 70 or later to retire? Well, if that's by choice rather than necessity, there's certainly nothing wrong with it. There are, in fact, some noteworthy pros to retiring later. To start, retiring later most likely increases your odds of being able to get your maximum Social Security benefit, right? This tops out at age 70. Next, you've had more time to save. And third, a bigger savings likely means you'll be able to generate a higher annual income once you do retire, provided you have the right strategy. And lastly, if you like your job, then continuing to work past the so-called normal retirement age could be good for your health. Now, what are some of the potential cons of retiring later? Well, if you do eventually plan to retire, you'll have less time to achieve your retirement goals. And depending upon your job and your attitude toward it, working later may instead be bad for your health. Also, regardless of when you actually do retire, you still have to deal with all the financial issues that are unique to retirement. Things like creating an estate planning, having the right strategies for Social Security benefits and RMDs. So with all this in mind, the question becomes, how can you narrow down your own retirement timeline? And how can you answer the question of when you should retire? Well, there are 4 steps to the process. So to begin, determine your net worth. This means adding up the total of all your assets and subtracting your debts. And obviously, you want a minimum amount of debt going into retirement, and you want your total assets to be enough to meet your income needs. So how do you determine those? Well, it starts with step 2. Identify your retirement goals. And, do you plan to downsize? Or do you plan to travel? Do you plan to start your own business? Do you plan to make major purchases? If you haven't thought about it, then do so sooner rather than later by writing down your goals. Step 3 is to estimate your Social Security income. No matter your level of assets, it's important to maximize these benefits and to coordinate them effectively with your other sources of income. And that starts with knowing the right time to start taking these benefits. And you could do some calculations on your own to determine roughly how much you can receive in different scenarios by using the retirement estimator that's available on ssa.gov. Now, with all this information, you're ready to take the final step, and that's shifting your financial strategy from portfolio growth to portfolio income. Because in my experience, most people are best served by doing this during the transitional years before retirement, typically meaning any time between age 50 and 60. See, by doing so, you're going to accomplish several things. You'll be much better positioned to answer the most important questions about retirement, including how much savings do I need? How much income do I need my savings to generate? And of course, when should I retire? But you'll also have an asset allocation that reduces your risk of suffering a major loss due to market volatility, and therefore of spending down principal during retirement. You'll have an asset allocation that starts preparing you for many of the challenges unique to retirement, like satisfying RMDs, maximizing Social Security, keeping up with inflation, or making sure you have enough money for future healthcare costs, because the rate of healthcare inflation is even faster, is even a bigger number than the general inflation rate. So it can be a huge challenge. And finally, you'll have a financial strategy that's flexible enough to adapt to whatever changes happen to come your way in the years just before and during retirement. And yes, all that is possible with the help of a retirement income specialist, who is also the person most qualified to help you make that important shift from growth to income. And since today's topic is really such a big subject, I'm bringing in some heavyweights. I'm bringing in some help. So let's first introduce my good friend Jeff Small, president of Arbor Financial Services. Jeff, appreciate you helping us out with this big topic today.
It's great to be here, Dave.
And also, Jeff, we get to bring in today's special guest, and that's Dr. Laurence Kotlikoff, an economics professor at Boston University and the president of Maxify, a personal financial planner. He's also the author of the upcoming book, which I can't wait to find out about, Money Magic, an economist's secrets to more money, less risk, and a better life. I love the sounds of that, coming out in January of 2022. Dr. Kotlikoff, thanks for being back with us on the income generation.
Yeah, it's great to be back with you guys. I love talking to you guys. It's always a lot of fun.
Dr. Kotlikoff, thank you for joining us all the way from Sweden today. We appreciate you. So we're looking at...
We've done this so often, you guys can just call me Larry. It's not, doesn't have to be doctor or anything.
Okay, Larry. Well, thank you for joining us all the way from Sweden today. We've transitioned thousands of investors from pre-retirement to retirement, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer to when you retire. When you factor in the economic, the psychological, and the emotional dynamic of transitioning. So is there a common denominator for when folks are ready to retire?
Well, I don't think there's a common denominator because everybody's situation is so different. Somebody might have inherited money. Somebody might have just gotten a job, gotten divorced, and started really earning some money late in life. And they don't have much savings. Somebody could have a big Social Security benefit coming. Somebody could not. It's really very individual specific. But what is a common denominator, Jeff, is making a very careful decision about when you can really afford to retire. And to an economist, it's a very straightforward calculation, which is what's my living standard? What's my disposable, spendable income going to be for the rest of my life if I retire, let's say at 62 versus 65 versus 70? What's the cost to me in terms of my living standard, my annual living standard? Yeah. Starting right now, I could be 55 thinking about this. If I retire early at 62, I have to consume less now because I have more years that I have to pay for where I'm not working. Yeah. So it has implications for your living standard right now. So you have to see what your sustainable living standard is from this point forward. If I go at 62, 65, 70. And also, Jeff and Dave, this has big implications. When you retire, has big implications for what your Social Security benefit will be, because the more you earn, it's possible you can raise the level of your Social Security benefits beyond any cost of living adjustment, because you might be in your high earning years and you might replace a low earnings year with a higher one. But then in addition, if you go early, you're likely to be cash constrained or feel cash constrained and likely to take your Social Security early, which is an enormous mistake for most people.
Yeah. It's funny, Larry, I just had a conversation with a client recently who at age 65, very healthy, on paper at least very long life expectancy. And she's got investments making 4 or 5%, but she wants to take that Social Security early as opposed, which is making essentially growing at 8% per year that she waits and leave the 4% investments there, which makes no sense. So people do make some emotional decisions. So Larry, this used to be an easier calculation, but the tax brackets today with Medicare taxes and everything have made it so much more complicated. And so how much does this Maxify software help you when coaching people as to whether or not they can afford to retire now?
So yeah, so my company, you're referring to my company's software called at Maxify.com, Maxify.com. Well, it will allow you to figure out, gee, if I go at 62, 65, 70, here's how my living standard will change. And Dave, you're absolutely right that it's not just that, if I go later, I'll have to pay more income taxes, more state income taxes. We have all the state income taxes coded, but if you're taking Social Security benefits early, if you plan to do that, okay, you could lose some due to the earnings test, but then you're probably going to, most likely get them back through something called the adjustment of the reduction factor. So you shouldn't worry too much about the earnings test. But then there's also the taxation of your Social Security benefits. There's the tax. There's a Medicare Part B premium tax. The premium gets bigger if your income is higher. So if you work longer, right, chances are that you might, and you're beyond 60, working beyond 65, you may kick up your, and if you're taking Medicare, but you might be working for an employer with 20 or more people and be on their plan. So there's lots of interconnected moving parts here. Yeah. So that's why running the program, individually, not just, in general, I can tell right, people what to do, but the program is so much smarter. It's like Big Blue, the chess tool, can sure, think already moves ahead. You have to take, and then things are very, there's also the issue of retirement account withdrawals. You were referencing, somebody's thinking about taking their Social Security first and their retirement account money second. The software can analyze that, whether you should do a Roth conversion, all that stuff comes into play and interact.
And Larry, those are all things that are custom, and that software helps you with the customization, which I completely get. Right. But, in the final minute or so we have, I just want to ask you about your book, Money Magic. When you start to say more money, less risk, and a better life, I mean, right? Who doesn't want that? And I'm somebody who likes to read your books as soon as they come out.
It's not out yet. It's coming out this is just galleys coming out in January.
So how does the book in a general sense help readers determine how they can do these things?
Well, I try and, this is a somewhat dry topic, and I'm an economist. So first of all, I try and make it fun so that it's a fun read. And I'm, a little sardonic and so forth, but I also try and look at lots of different cases of different types of households. So I could get across the idea, look, maybe you're in this category, this trick will apply to you. If you're in this category, that trick will apply to you. So, for example, if you're super wealthy, retirement account, doing a Roth conversion is not likely to help you because you're not going to be taking money out of a tax deferred account and being able to pay taxes at a low rate because you're always going to be at a high rate. So I think I'm getting across lessons that apply to everybody by looking at everybody at categories of people in that manner. So I hope it is going to be, I do think it's really going to be helpful to a lot of people, and also just to see the economics perspective, because our approach to financial planning is completely different from conventional financial planning. And
I love it. All right, January of 2022, Money Magic. And I assume they go to Amazon and pick up the book, correct?
I prefer you go to your local bookstore or Barnes and Nobles, because I think Amazon gets enough business, but why not? I mean, if you want to save some time in one click, Amazon, go for it. And Kotlikoff.net is my website. There's a link to it, to the Amazon page where you can pre-order it if you'd like.
Great. All right. Well, Larry, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And Jeff, you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for watching today's video, When Should I Retire? If you enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up button to give us a like, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for new content each and every week.